Marco Andretti was crowned the 2022 SRX champion by 2 points over Ryan Newman. During Andretti's championship run, he used consistency to reach this point. Good finishes in the heat races, had three straight second place finishes entering last night's season finale at Sharon. Ironically, Andretti didn't win a single heat race or main event to take home the title. However, some people noticed a possible issue with the SRX scoring, leading to questions if Andretti actually won the title over a scored error. That possible error suggests that Newman might be the actual champion. This morning, SRX CEO Donald Hawk acknowledged the confusion, thanking well-respected member of the motorsports community, NASCAR man on Twitter, for taking the time to research this issue. And here's where the confusion comes into play. Back at the season opener at Five Flag Speedway, Andretti pitted prior to the second heat race. Since Marco finished fifth in the first heat, he should have restarted ninth in the second heat, but ended up restarting 12th instead. NASCAR man says the 3 point difference between where he deserved to start versus where he actually did was apparently credited to Marco after the conclusion of the race at Five Flag Speedway. But this move wasn't disclosed to the public at all and showed up in the standings without a proper explanation. In the end, the 3 point bonus was labeled as an attempt to fix poor officiating that night. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal at all, but proved later to be significant when it came off as a scoring error. Could SRX have avoided this fallout altogether? They were transparent about the point situation right from the start. Also, what are your thoughts on Marco's SRX title?
Who cares? I mean, and listen, let me be clear. When I say who cares, I don't mean who cares when it comes to Marco Andretti. Congratulations on his championship. I think we got that clarified with the scoring error. When I say who cares, this is what I mean by that. It's not that if I didn't care at all about SRX, I wouldn't be talking about it right now. When I say who cares, I'm talking about that's what SRX's motto seems to be at this point, 2 seasons into the series. We saw it last week. Obviously, we had the whole debate over what happened with Hailie Deegan's race and should she have been allowed back on the lead lap? Do caution laps count? Do caution laps not count? There seems to be no consistency. And let me just say this, and this is a criticism that I've had of NASCAR as well when it comes to stage racing and everything. If your point system is complicated enough to the point where something like this happens, it's probably not a good point system. So maybe they should look into that and how they award points for the heat races going into season 3, if there even is going to be a season 3. I know we'll get into that on the next question, but it's been so difficult for me to get into SRX, and this is just the latest example of why. It seems like nobody really has a clear-cut understanding of what's going on. There's so many issues like this that come up that distract from the actual racing. The racing itself gets interrupted with green flag lap limits and all that. I don't know. There are so many issues with SRX right now from a pure racing perspective that I don't know that there's going to be much of an audience, at least not as much of an audience as they were expecting to have going into season 3. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself here because I know that's the next question, but there are a lot of questions surrounding the entire series right now. And having an issue like this certainly does not help. They should have been more transparent whenever they fixed the issue. I've been trying to read up on it, trying to just see what the heck is going on. Is Marco Andretti even the real champion? I mean, it doesn't get much more disastrous than that. If you have fans on social media debating who the champion actually was, because was there a scoring error? That cannot happen in any professional series whatsoever, yet it happened here in SRX.
Should SRX return for a third year on CBS in primetime in 2023?
I think SRX will be back. I think Tony Stewart's a little bit too stubborn to let one of his creations die after just 2 seasons. But I will say this. I think the question as to whether or not it will be on CBS in primetime on Saturday nights is certainly a massive question mark. I think, again, I don't know if this is on CBS or on SRX as well, but Kobe, you brought up a good point, as well. It didn't even occur to me that there really weren't like live points as they run or championship clinch scenarios. Obviously, a point system is so complicated that the series itself doesn't seem to have a 100% grasp on what's going on. So maybe we can't expect that of CBS if the series doesn't even know. But that would have been helpful to have for your championship race. I got to think so. I think that maybe I don't know. There's so much to talk about with SRX. I feel like I've talked in circles. I don't want to monopolize our time here towards the end of the show, but I think that's the biggest question mark. I think the series will return, but primetime CBS, like I mentioned last week, they can't be too happy with the ratings. Now, all credit to Marco Andretti coming into a car that's completely different than what he was used to for so many years in the IndyCar series and winning a championship. Again, we think with this scoring error and everything, but he still had a lot of great runs. And it's been great to see him have some success in his post-IndyCar career beyond just the Indy 500 that he's been doing every year since he stepped away full-time. But again, SRX has so many issues that they need to iron out. I don't know, but they can get that all done in just one off season. I think it's going to be a couple of years down the line. And again, like you mentioned, Adam, maybe we don't even get it all next year. We'll just have to wait and see.